Thank you, Ken, for inviting me here. Jamie as well. So, yeah, indeed, it was a long day for you, a long day for me. Just I came this morning from Edmonton to speak about hemp. Okay, where's Nathan? So, any other hemp growers here? One. Any other cannabis growers here? Only one? Okay, so why I mentioned that we have both hemp and cannabis growers, because I want to set the stage and then, just like make a very clear distinction between the two. So in here on this panel, what you see, can you recognize this crop? Mike can recognize, that's good. Nathan is nodding. So this is what? It's written there. Come on, guys. It's the last presentation, so I bet that you can spend another half an hour or so with me. So this is high THC cannabis, okay? The other names that there's very many names. And every presentation I make, I ask my audience about, just like what name your crop goes by. So marijuana, wheat, pot, Mary Jane, which is like a English name of marijuana. One of my favorite is this electric lettuce. And apparently it does, just like it's very descriptive, right? So it's some strains of high THC cannabis can electrify you. So we are talking about high THC cannabis. What's the concentration of THC in high THC cannabis? Barb, this is a question for you. Oh yeah, come on. You don't have 4 plants on your windowsill? 15%. Okay, any other numbers? What electric lettuce, marijuana pot, what's the THC concentration in buds of marijuana? Barb said 15%. Any other? Mike is nodding. 30%. Cannot hear you? Oh yeah. Do you have this strain? I'm buying for you for all money. No, just like share with me. I will buy it from you. So no, yes, this 20, 25, between 15, some strains, because they are not cultivars, means cultivated varieties, as far as I'm concerned. They are typically go between 15, 20. The highest I saw was 28. So there's this 30%, but typically is this neighborhood of THC of 15%, 15 and 20. Okay, on this panel, on the other hand, we have industrial hemp, the crop that has been grown here legally in Canada since when? Nathan, this is for you a question. 98, yes, excellent. March 98, excellent. So, THC content in here is what? What constitutes industrial hemp, guys? It's written there, you can read of the, Lisa, excellent, absolutely. So you can see the difference between these two crops, right? 30%, 0.3%, 100 times difference. So I always claim that if you would like to take industrial hemp and roll it, your joint would have to be 100 times longer than a regular one. So what's your just size of your joint that you're normally using?
Let's just say typical.
Typical?
Yeah.
So what's the size? Okay, size, Mike actually has the real one. So it's like, so imagine 100 times more. So the joint would have to be like from here to Barb. So look at these two panels, okay? At the high THC panel and low THC panel. And I ask you to identify at least 3 visual differences between the panels. High THC panel, low THC panel. Can you find and tell me 3 visual differences? Height. So, yeah, you're on the right. Inside, outside, excellent. Height, inside, outside, and look at the bottom panel of our field.
How many?
Size of the operation, absolutely. These three visual differences are very obvious. And I'm telling you that these are just like right now, and that's what we've been seeing. And you see more differences, guys? No? Okay. But remember, I will buy this 80% THC from you, so I have cash on me, so we'll do under the table. So three major differences. Some guys told me, oh, you can make more money on one than the other. Yeah, perhaps. So you found these three differences. However, and look at this nursery on the top right panel. This is my nursery of my variety. So you could see and identify differences. However, very many people cannot. Why I'm making this long introduction? Because I want you and I want to convey this information on your, not like coronavirus, but convey this information will be much more useful on your neighbors, on the people who you're dealing with. Industrial hemp is not marijuana. Look at this, I show you this tall and big plants. You can see what has happened on this, to my plants. Somebody came to my nursery and cut off 23 heads of industrial hemp like this. Because in somebody's mind, it resembled marijuana. Initially I thought, oh, good luck. You guys will be smoking the 3-meter joints. You will suffocate from incomplete combustion of lignin and cellulose, and you still cannot get high. However, my colleagues said, they're not stupid. They will blend your low THC hemp with real stuff and will be selling as a filler, you know, just like in Mike's joints. So this is a big problem, but it's not only our problem. Read this. This is from a few months ago, from the New York Times. Farmers in New York, they started growing hemp not long time ago, have drastic measures to protect their crops from trespassers, because people in New York State and other states were making the same mistake. They were invading, vandalizing hemp plots, thinking that they are getting good stuff. And by the way, we will be talking about industrial hemp and industrial hemp agronomy, but we also work at Innotech Alberta. My team also has a license to grow marijuana, and I provide research services to companies, licensed producers, so those who can grow marijuana. And there is a trend in here, in Canada, to grow outdoor, as I was telling you, that size of the operation, to grow marijuana outdoor. Why? Money, 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 cheaper. So what you have in here, Aurora Sun, huge operation, empty, right? Because cost of operation, right? So keep this in mind. So did you get these differences between the two crops? Yes? No? Perhaps. Okay, so as I said, remember, you cannot get high from industrial hemp. There's one condition you can get high: when you make a rope and start climbing. Did you get this, Jamie? Okay, excellent. So you can get high, there's only one condition. Okay, so we were talking about the differences between low and high THC cannabis. Because industrial hemp, according to the Act, the Cannabis Act that was introduced on November 17, 2018, both crops are regulated here in Canada under the same act. So we are growing marijuana for, not we, but people are growing marijuana for THC to get high. Industrial hemp is grown for grain, fiber, and feed. So, as you might notice, these two circles overlap. There is one common thing that is a common thing for low and high THC cannabis. What is that? And Mike, don't tell us. Who said so? Yes, yeah. Jamie, you're right, it is CBD. Thank you for telling us. So CBD, cannabidiol, non-narcotic cannabinoid. Both low and high THC cannabis contains CBD and some other minor non-narcotic cannabinoids. Have you heard about CBD at all? So what did you hear? Good stuff, bad stuff? Is it psychoactive or not? Supposed to be good for you. Very many people say that CBD is not psychoactive. Wrong. CBD is psychoactive, but non-narcotic. The difference, why you're just why you're smoking pot, Nathan, why you smoke pot? To get high, right? Why you take CBD, it is psychoactive because it has been shown to act, for example, for juvenile epilepsy, for anxiety, for some neurological disorders. So it is psychoactive, yet it's not addictive and non-narcotic. So this is a short course, but this is extremely important for all those of you who are or potentially will be hemp growers. That hemp in Canada and beyond will be or is being grown for this four reasons: grain, fiber, feed, and CBD. Currently, I distinguish two major types of usage types of hemp, and the third usage type is in the works. The first is grain type, which varieties are of short stature, high seed yield, typically high seed yield, low vegetative biomass. This picture was taken on your neighbor's field and Roland's here in southern Alberta. The second major usage type is fiber, or some call it dual purpose type varieties, tall or very tall plants. As you can see, variety harvested from our breeding nursery. Very high straw yield that translates into high fiber yields, and lower seed yields, but not necessarily. And the third usage type, and this is a picture that I took a week ago, no, maybe 10 years ago in Australia. I just got back a week ago from Australia. That's why I'm not hugging and kissing and not touching anybody. It's the CBD type. Nathan, you're just an experienced hemp grower. Would you say that this is a hemp plant?
No.
Look at this. I thought post-conference we had a tour, and they said we are going to see hemp grown in Western Australia. So we went to research plots. Oh boy, they are 15, 20 years behind us. They have a long way to go. And then they said we'll go to a farm that grows hemp for CBD. And believe me, I've been working with hemp for 18 years. And when we were approaching this, I said, okay, so this is cherry orchard. So where is the hemp field? Because the hemp plants looked like this. And this is not perennial plant. This is annual plant. And I have more pictures that diameter of this stem was literally just like a 2.5, 3 inches. Grown in 1 year, so they were just having in a hot house or glass house as they call it, and then transplanted, and then 8 months later they have a tree or a plant like this. So imagine that this tree or hemp plant will be having buds. These are all feminized seeds, so just like a buds only, no male flowers. And they will be manually collecting, like picking cherries from a tree, they will be collecting. They had in total on this farm, they had 720 plants. So this is, I'm dwelling on this CBD, Australian style CBD. Here in Canada, we are already having, and there's more varieties with elevated, right now we don't have varieties that have elevated CBD levels that could be efficiently grown for CBD. We have pretty much majority of varieties that are on the list of approved cultivars are low CBD varieties. However, there's lots of effort, and I'm involved in this research and development as well to register varieties here in Canada that will offer high CBD. And they won't be, you don't need a tree harvester to extract CBD from the plant. So remember, so this is CBD variety Australian way. So as I said, here in Canada right now, we are just, our industry, we call it, that is powered by a four-cylinder engine. So we have like this 4 cylinders. The first cylinder that our industry was going on for nearly over 20 years was grain. Hemp was grown until pretty much a year ago exclusively only for grain. And I bet that that's what, Nathan, you didn't grow for any other purposes. So imagine a 4-cylinder engine going on one cylinder. It still was moving. We're just doing just fine here in Canada. We are just exporting our products. So 2 years ago, and actually last year was the first year that the second cylinder fired up. That was the fiber cylinder. Last year we had thousands of acres. By the way, I cannot tell you how many thousands of acres because Health Canada hasn't released yet 2019 cropping data, acres and varieties. But in the Edmonton area, we got company, Canadian Rockies Hemp Corporation. They are just first commercial scale decortication or fiber processing facility. And they contracted paid farmers, so farmers grew under contract in the neighborhood of 10 to 13,000 acres for fiber. This year, by the way, Canadian Rockies are contracting between 20 and 30,000 acres of hemp to be grown specifically for fiber. Okay, so this is second cylinder. The first cylinder, of course, is hemp for CBD. So last year and the year before, 2018, we got the first crop after, when the Cannabis Act was introduced. So some growers collected flowers or chaff for CBD extractions. Last year, we got first, again, thousands of acres. We don't have, at this point of time, specific number of acres was grown for CBD. Here in Canada, we still had very many, or majority of acres were grown for grain. 3 weeks ago, before going to Australia, I was invited to Montana. I was speaking in Montana State University, and they told me, we are so proud in Montana in 2019, we grew the higher number of acres of hemp in the States. That was 52,000 acres. 10,000 of them were grown for grain and fiber, and the rest was grown for CBD. So 42,000 for CBD, 10,000 acres for grain and fiber. And I told them, looking at their numbers and their analytical data of this hemp for CBD, you didn't grow for 52,000 acres of hemp. You grew 42,000 acres of marijuana, because just THC levels in very many on very many plots or fields exceeded 0.3%, exceeded 1%, and I claim or argued that it was not hemp. So, and you perhaps heard story because they are just south of the border. What happened in the States in general? They had over 400,000 acres licensed of hemp in 2019. Vast majority, some people say 70, some people said 90% of acres were grown for CBD. So now what they ended up with tons and tons and piles of flowers for CBD, who cannot be sold. Why? Because they are, not only they, but globally, companies are lagging behind with processing capacities. So farmers jumped on this opportunity. Very many farmers in the audience. What do you think if a company guy is coming to you and telling, how about making 20 to 50,000 per acre? Would you put money into such opportunity? It's a question. If I wouldn't never would make such promise. 20 to 50,000 dollars. I saw some guys claiming their revenue $100,000 per acre. Just like I would say it's too good to be true, and appear to be good to be true, because even those who got contracts for CBD ended up with their crops still sitting in their drying sheds. And I was told, I'm not sure just if it's true, that some guys who really put all resources, because they were struggling with this $15, $20 margin on barley in Montana per acre. So if they had, finally I can, I can get some money. So if I would tell you, just to invest all money, I was told that some guys pretty much committed suicide because they lost everything. Okay, so that's it. Sad stories. The fourth cylinder is livestock feed. Hemp, grain for livestock feed. Guess what? Humans can consume hemp for the last 22 years or so, 23 years, but we cannot legally feed and sell screenings, residues, hulls, and you name it, hemp seed fractions as livestock feed. Currently, Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance is working on a registration of hemp grain as a livestock feed. So hopefully this process will be completed soon. So a few things about what we are doing, because just as I said, I came from Vegreville all the way in here, and I mentioned that I've been working on hemp for 18 years. We assembled this program that offers solutions for hemp from seed to final products. And we have three research domains. First is feedstock development. Second is fiber processing, because we are just like focusing on fiber rather than on grain. And the third is biocomposite development and industry support. So today I want to talk exclusively about this feedstock development, and one of them, the major aspect that we are just addressing is hemp agronomy. As I mentioned, we are just breeding, we are developing varieties, but even if you have the best varieties for grain, fiber, CBD, you name it, but if you don't know how to grow it, you cannot get the potential that resides in this crop. So initially for several years, we're running studies, agronomy studies at the Vegreville site. And by the way, this picture looks like a drone, but this is quite old picture, and actually this is a manure application just like a studies, and was taken from a chopper. So we got one of our rich neighbors has a chopper and took this picture. It looks like now it's not a big deal. So we tested several factors, several parameters, production parameters that farmers would be asking about. Mind you, hemp, as Nathan said actually, was legalized in Canada in 1998. Prior to that was banned for 60 years. So hemp was considered, and still is considered, as a new crop where farmers don't have experience. In our Vegreville area, we have lots of Ukrainian farmers, as you perhaps know. And when I talked to our local area farmers, and they said, oh, it's like my Guido, means grandfather did, my father did the same way, and I'm doing the same way. So I know how to grow prairie crops. However, farmers who are just entering this crop, considering growing this crop, they have to acknowledge that is very different, as we will be showing you in here. So initially we tested ourselves this set of production factors, and then we teamed up with Ken, Mike, Jamie, and entire crew at Farming Smarter, and with Sarda in the north, and we got hemp tested, or agronomy research was done at several sites. So as I said, Falaise, Vegreville, and Lethbridge. And here I just like in Lethbridge, we're doing under irrigation. So you're familiar with this southern Alberta reality. But I want to draw your attention to this table, because as I said, there's 3 locations were carefully selected in terms of amount of precipitation, temperatures, soil type, and what I particularly want to draw your attention to availability of daylight. So as you know that at higher latitudes we have longer days, and the difference between Lethbridge and Falaise was over 1 hour in light availability at the first day of summer. So it means that crops grown in the north, they are getting more sunlight. And by the way, just like in the Fort Vermilion area, we had collaborators working on hemp as well out there. This difference between, say, Lethbridge or Medicine Hat and, let's say, La Crete or Fort Vermilion is 2 hours. So this is really important to remember, because I will explain you why I dwell on it. So what varieties are grown in Alberta? As I said, Health Canada hasn't provided us yet with 2019 acreages. In Alberta, Finola is the king. Variety, grain type variety, the short variety, as I was showing you on the other picture, is the king. It's, we are just growing by far among all Canadian provinces. We are growing Finola, and we are liking growing Finola, or our farmers. You might notice that the variety Katani is also gaining popularity. Katani is also a short grain type, short stature variety. It's a competitor in a sense to Katani. The other variety worth mentioning, and Piccolo and Grandi are also the same family, Katani, Piccolo, Grandi, short type varieties. A very popular variety is also X59. X59 is taller variety, has very compacted seed heads. I've heard from very many growers here in southern Alberta that they like growing here because it doesn't shell as easily as this typical grain type varieties like Finola, Katani, Piccolo. Particularly when you have winds and shelling is a problem. So X59 is and is high yielding, as I will be showing you later. You might notice that, just like dual purpose varieties, and we don't have 2019 data, because I will show you that this thousands of acres contracted for fiber production was, just like in the category other, you will be getting in 2019 this fiber type varieties. And as we said, in 2019, lots of varieties, particularly this grain type varieties, were also grown for CBD and harvested mostly at flowering stage, and we'll elaborate on it a bit later. So variety selection, and this is now what I'm showing, so you can actually take over from here, because these are all your data as well. You need glasses, yes, so I know that you're just like making faces. So I'm talking about this studies that we're conducting at this 3 locations here in Alberta. So you can see 3 classes or 3 clusters of varieties. So as far as straw yield is concerned, you can see a red cluster, fiber type varieties. You can see a green cluster, which are these dual purpose varieties, including X59, CFX2, CRS1, and the yellow finally is are very just distinct cluster of this typical grain type varieties, Phinola, Catani, Piccolo, Grandi. So we had this a set of 12 varieties. You might notice that the short grain type varieties yielded 50% less straw than this tall and straw type varieties. Let's look at grain. There is no such huge difference in terms of grain yields as among the usage type varieties as in straw. So you can see that this I would call them dual purpose varieties that are green on the straw panel. Here they are just like labeled in red. They are appeared in our studies the highest producers of grain. And look at some varieties like our Silesia variety, that the tallest, the highest biomass producer, yielded higher than Phinola or Piccolo. So that's why, just like we are getting a very good feedback from the growers who are interested in this dual purpose variety that will be grown for grain and for fiber. Okay, so you know what the varieties we're growing, now field selection. So hemp is very sensitive to soil structure, obviously penalties on compacted soils, and hemp doesn't tolerate soils with poor drainage. So when growers are asking me, so where can I put my hemp on? You have to have soil with good drainage. And I will show you why. So this is like the test plot. We have like hundreds of them. And you can see, I believe that was 2017, a wet spring. A very nice germination, a very nice crop establishment. And you can see there's depression where water was standing for a day or two. Automatically plants were eradicated. So I was complaining about our situation, and my collaborator from Ontario sent me this slide. So this is a fiber type variety. Believe me, this is hemp. Actually, hemp was seeded there, and they had like raining cats and dogs every day. So pretty much you can see and this picture was taken in early July, where plants supposed to be just like a meter and a half tall. So that was poor drainage. So keep this in mind. Don't put the hemp on plants with compacted soil. This is a picture from Faller, and they also had just like a very wet year. And this is X59 variety, supposed to be taller than Cabal at this point of time. And you can see they were having standing water for 7 to 8 days. What happened? Crop survive was dramatically dwarfed and stagnant. So not only just like a straw yield or fiber yield is compromised, but also grain yields are compromised when you're just growing on soil with poor drainage. So this is a picture from 2017, as I said, in Vegreville was very wet. And this is the same picture from 2 years earlier. Exactly on the same date, just like a seeding date. So it tells you the story, right? So where the plant's supposed to be and what soil with poor drainage in a wet year did to your crop. So keep in mind, I hope that the message was projected loud and clearly. Seeding, we recommend shallow seeding, 1/2 inch. We recommend seeding, depends what you're just growing for. If you're just going for grain, 20 to 25 pounds per acre. I know that some growers, experienced growers, told me that they put as little as 15. What's your seeding rate, Nathan? 25. So he's a good, talk to him, he's a good farmer. So 25 pounds per acre. If you're just growing for fiber, And this is, I'm just like, tomorrow I will be discussing with, just like a new project with a company. They want to go even over 60 pounds per acre, but they have very particular application in mind, textile application, when they want to have slender, slim stems without secondary branches. So they want to go even higher than 60 pounds per acre. Typically, this 40 to 60 is recommended or required by those who contract hemp for fiber. Seed in warm soils. When you seed in warm soils with temperature above 8 degrees, you will get plants germinating in 4 or 5 days. Just like it grows really quickly and establishes canopy very quickly. One of the problems that we have with hemp is high field mortality. Between some guys reported up to 70%. So of seed mortality. Why? Because just it could be when seeds are cracked, when you're just seeding cracked seeds, just fungal infections, seed don't germinate, or seedlings can also be affected in early stages. So we are recommending adding 30% seed rate based on your just like a germination test. And equipment, when you're just like, we are just recommending, and I will show you why, to set your fan at low speed in air seeders. And I will tell you why, because look at this picture. It was taken with, by one of our largest growers in the Vegreville area. And you can see clearly what happened when they were just seeding just like at 3,000 RPM when they started day, and they realized that rain is coming or something, so they speeded up, and in the afternoon they cranked up to 5,000 RPM. So you can see that hemp germinated and established nice rows at low speed, and at 5,000 RPM seeds were cracked, and as I said, very high seed mortality. So don't rush. Hemp doesn't like rushing at the seeding stage. Seeding date is affected more, or yield of fiber is affected more than yield of grain, as I will document. Remember, I was telling you about these differences between these 3 locations that we run our agronomy studies, Alberta agronomy studies. Remember, just like a Faller got over an hour more light in early summer. Hemp is a short day plant. So what does it mean? That long days, like at higher latitudes, delay flowering. So it means that stem elongation can occur until flowering. Once days start getting shorter, it triggers flowering. Hemp will stop growing. So it means that early seeding generates taller plants and more vegetative biomass. And we, from our studies, it was obvious that if weather is not a confounding factor, same variety grown in the north produces 20 to 30% more straw, more fiber. So this is what we call northern advantage for fiber production. So closer to home, so effect of seeding date on straw yield and plant height. You can see early. You see that, Mike, it was like early, mid-May, early May. Early standard was end of May, and late was mid-June. So you can see differences. The earlier you see, the taller plants are, and more straw yield and more biomass. So this is Mike's. These are Mike's data. And you might notice that the yield of seed was not affected or impacted by seeding date to the same extent. And actually, I bet that very many growers here in southern Alberta and elsewhere, who are growing for grain, they delay seeding to get less straw and have less problems at harvesting. Just like some farmers, our farmers that I collaborate and work with, were forced, and I will explain you later why, forced to seed until as late as mid-July. I will explain you why. And they still collected harvested grain. Hemp is one of the fastest growing plants. I liked showing this two panels picture taken a few years ago. My beard was not as gray as today. Coronavirus is after me, so that's why I'm just aging prematurely. Thursday, July 14th, I went for a conference to Ontario, got back on Monday, went to the same plot to take measurements, and I couldn't recognize my my plants. So at this fiber type varieties growing, just like up to 15 centimeters per day. This is in the beginning in the first part of July. Fertilization. When we started working, and I was asking farmers, Nathan, how did you fertilize? And I was told, just like a high-yielding, high-protein spring wheat, just like a. So some other growers told me I put as much fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer, as I can afford. So, so we, in our studies, as I will be showing on the next slide, we verified this, just like recommendations extended by farmers. One more caution or note or point to remember that the hemp is very sensitive to nitrogen placement. So it means that you cannot put nitrogen with the seeds. Side banded, mid-row banded, sometimes we are just like banding in separate operation. Whatever is your common practice, don't put hemp seeds with nitrogen with the hemp seeds. We learned first hand. Years ago we had an experiment and putting nitrogen with the seeds. And again, it was almost the same effect as dwarfing by poor drainage soil. So seedlings grew to just like a 10, 12 inches, and that's it. And that's it. And they started dying off. Pretty much, and we were using urea. So nitrogen toxicity is a problem. So here I'm showing data of our studies, Alberta studies. Response to fertilizer. First, seed yields. You might notice that across the sides that there is this magic number that we found for maximum grain yields was 120 kilogram nitrogen, and at higher rates we are observing lower yields, perhaps due to nitrogen toxicity. For fiber, was hemp grown for fiber or fiber yields. Maximum was achieved at 90 kilograms per hectare and then plateaued. So there is no obvious benefit of hemp fertilization of hemp for fiber. So, but remember, we are testing different usage types. Here we tested two. Blue is this typical grain type, green is this dual purpose X59, and red is fiber type. So you may notice that different usage types have different needs or different response to nitrogen fertilizer. And as far as grain is concerned, grain type varieties were more responsive to nitrogen. The opposite was observed for fiber, and again, a fiber type variety was more responsive to nitrogen than the grain type varieties. Attainable yields in Alberta, I would say here I just range. This is a very wide range. I put 100 kilograms or 1,000 kilograms, and I would say 0 to just under on dryland situation, 1,500 attainable. This is like a ballpark, because guys are asking me, so how many pounds per acre I can expect? So this is the range, and I'm telling this is it could be 0, because I saw fields, I saw farmers who got zero, nothing. Why? Because they treated hemp as they, Guido and Papa and themselves treated growing canola, barley, or wheat. And they applied the same set of management practices to hemp as to staple Alberta crops. So again, a comparison of 3 sites, Alberta sites, Vegreville, Falaise, and Lethbridge on dry lands. So you might notice that blue is, and this is seed yield, you might notice that blue, this Falaise northern Peace Country location has quite low yields of seed compared to central and southern Alberta. However, when we compared effects of irrigation here in Lethbridge, look at that. Irrigation resulted in 3 to 6 times increase in seed yield. So this is in all varieties, including grain type varieties and fiber type varieties. When we're looking at the fiber yields, again, same set of varieties, same locations, you might notice that blue, that is Peace Country location, as far as fiber is concerned, you know, just like the highest yields were obtained out there. Why? Did I mention Northern Advantage? Did I mention, yes, 5 minutes left. My flight is at 9, so I have lots of time. Sorry, just we'll be wrapping up in 5 minutes. Nobody's flying back to Lethbridge from here. Okay, so I'm the only one. Okay, so you might notice take-home message, what we are talking about, Northern Advantage, 20-30% higher yields in the north. Effects of irrigation not as profound as in Lethbridge, not as profound in case of grain. You might notice that fiber type varieties were more responsive to irrigation with respect to fiber yield than grain type varieties. So 2 years ago, we started new study at this same location +1 Saskatchewan site, crop sequencing, and I noticed that Farming Smarter developed a beautiful banner out there, and it's a really nice picture. Because why we had this study, because farmers were asking us, so where my hemp fits in the rotation. So we had this, we selected 8 crops that are predominantly grown in different locations, Falaise, Vegreville, and Lethbridge. Here in Lethbridge, you don't have faba bean, you have corn, you have field peas, right? No, beans, you have beans, right? So the bottom line is that we are just providing, this is first time, this study, the comprehensive study, the first of its kind in North America. So we will be providing farmers answers to their questions, how my hemp production fits in a rotation in given production zone. Weed control, there is a very limited selection of herbicides. Actually, we have now just like a pre-seed burn-off and glyphosate and edge. We have Assure 2 registered in Canada for grassy weeds, and for broadleaves, bromoxynil works fine. However, registration process that was underway was dropped. However, we have very many organic growers, particularly just the grain growers. And hemp is, as we said, very competitive, closes canopy quickly. So this is a field of organic hemp in the St. Paul area, and with Vic and Eugene Laband. And I told them, you guys are lying. You sprayed with something because the field, organic, they claim this is organic field, was uniform, 0 weeds. And indeed, they are just like, they know what they are doing. They are just great organic growers. So hemp can be effectively grown under organic, and the weed control can be done. Pests and diseases, sclerotinia can be considered a problem. There is a rotation with canola, same with grain mold. Insects, for time being, are not a real problem. Birth armyworm. and European corn borer in here where you have corn. This picture I took in New Brunswick. They started having European corn borer. Aphids, this is picture from Rod Lanier. He showed me the pictures of aphids affecting his hemp and cutworms. And cutworms quickly, this is the first, to the best of my knowledge, first example of insect that caused some economic crop losses. June 29, the crop was seeded in early June, crop 29, cutworms were found. So what happened? Organic grower lost 90 acres overnight. Overnight, the cutworms came and annihilated the entire field. The good news is, as I said, he seeded in mid-July and harvested crop in October. So keep in mind, but this was organic production on the freshly broken field. Spring frost is not a problem. Hemp is, as opposed to flax and soybean, can survive a pinch of spring frost. Hail, injuries, big problem, potentially big problem. It depends on stage and on damage, on usage type of variety. Here is a plant that on the left that was not affected by hail. Affected by hail means the leader was chopped off. This hail came in early July in Vegreville, and you may notice that crop had enough time to produce secondary branches that were seed-bearing branches. So it depends on variety, depends on the stage of plant that is affected by hail. That doesn't mean that has to be dry right off. Winter in the summer, that's apparently is very familiar in here as well. Can do lots of damage, particularly this is our nursery that was severely affected by mid-September summer. And I want to finish up with a CBD story, because we are talking about grain and fiber. There are three major components or factors affecting CBD and other cannabinoids in the plants. First, in genetics, I already mentioned that currently available varieties in Canada have low CBD content. Environment, weather patterns, and extremes greatly affect CBD in your crop. And management, what I mean by that, fertility, harvest time. If you take all these three factors, G, E, and M, you will get this gem, you will get the true value from your crop. Very many growers dwell on this genetics, or we have high CBD, or we have a promise of high CBD varieties, but I will show you on next few slides how environment and management affect the CBD. So 2016, above average precipitation, wet spring. So we got this tested varieties that we are showing you other grain and fiber yields. And you might notice that there was a peak of CBD concentration, and then depends on the variety, CBD concentration in the plant. So it means management when you harvest was going down. So that was nice wet spring, very nice year. 2017, near average precipitation with long, at the Vegreville side, long warm fall. Look at that, the same set of varieties, same location. Response of CBD production was vastly different. Because of long warm fall, some varieties reached a peak of CBD at grain harvest, which is a great news, because if you collect chaff, you can still extract CBD from your crop residues. In 2018, very dry year, hot and dry spring, we had this snow, and you name it. Look at, in other years, we're just getting nearly 3% or 3% of CBD. Here in this dry and very just like a peculiar year, CBD levels were just half of what was achieved in previous years. So there is a set of factors in addition to this G times E times M. What is in your crop, how you harvest, how you dry, how you store, how you extract. And overall, there's like a 50% of CBD that is in crop, tested in crop, can be lost or is lost due to post-harvest management. So, concluding remarks, as we said already 2 times, so I will repeat for the 3rd time, that our farmers know how to grow staple crops. However, if you want to grow hemp, you have to adopt cultivation practices accordingly. Why? Cultivar selection we're talking about. It's a regulated crop, so you have to get a license. Seeding date and rate we're dwelling, and I was showing you what are differences. Effects of nutrition and harvest management. Grow under contract, don't try to hope for whatever you're growing. Fiber, CBD, grain, grow under contract, get contract first. And don't put all eggs in the CBD basket, as we discussed what has happened in the States. If you don't know, if you don't accept that hemp is different, you will end up with such crop. And by the way, this is not Alberta, this is Saskatchewan. I was driving to Manitoba and I stopped and I looked at such terrible field. So if you want to know how to grow hemp, we developed, Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, developed the Industrial Hemp e-guide, free of charge. Go on the net and you will get lots of information how to deal with this crop. If you know what you are doing, you will get good crop. Thank you very much. It was only 6 minutes longer. Nathan, would you like to address a few questions?
Yeah, does anybody have questions for Jan?
Yeah, you mentioned on the feed side that it's still not legal to feed.
No.
What's the potential for feed? No, I don't think of hemp as a awesome crop to feed because of the fiber.
Well, okay, so maybe I was not clear, obvious enough. Ken's question was that hemp doesn't have potential as livestock feed because it's fibrous. Once again, we're registering hemp, grain, fractions and residues as livestock feed. I got very many questions from growers. Hey, it grows particularly from the foothills, just like west of Highway 16 in central Alberta. And, just grows really quickly, just as we are showing, right? So can I feed to my livestock? No, for time being, you cannot. However, what's the major problem now? We have this, as we said, hemp is been primarily grown for grain. So all screenings, all hulls, just like when you just buying hemp hearts, right? I hope you're buying, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Mike knows. So 40% when you're dehulling, removing the shell, 40% of this hulls technically now has to go to landfill or, just like cannot be used as livestock feed. So this program that or projects that we are just executing, and I'm waiting for the last set of data from NRC, because we tested nutritional, anti-nutritional values of different fractions, 8 fractions, including whole seeds, shells, pressed cake, screenings. What else, Nathan? You should remember, 8 fractions. So it's a big problem, commercial, just like an economic problem, because processors have to dump screenings and these fractions. So what we are seeing, that hemp grain is a great source, as we all know, for omega-3s, for minerals, for proteins. So and I know you haven't heard this from me, that guys are already feeding, right, Nathan? Yes, Nathan agreed. Feeding, which is, well, just like right now, according to the regulations, is illegal. So it's a great potential, and not only just like a feeding value, but also economic potential for hemp as livestock feed. But again, hemp, seed and seed fractions. Yes, and just like I was talking to Health Canada, And yes, our deregulators, they are just like can process only one file at the time. So it's yeah. So we don't want to distract them. We want to have what is like right now, as I said, 40% of seeds goes to a landfill. Well, technically. So we want to have this registered and approved by Health Canada. Next step will be feeding trials with juvenile hemp. And I can tell you that in 1996. So even prior hemp was legalized as a crop in Canada. Stan Blade, who is now a dean of Faculty of Agronomy, Agriculture, Life Sciences and Environment at the U of A, he was a scientist apparently this 20 years ago plus. No, he was a good scientist. And they did some initial feeding value studies. So they were clipping plants at this juvenile stage, and they found that yes, it's not fibrous and has nutritional value. Of course, it will be a portion of a mix, right? But such that there is one package of information that eventually will have to be just in a couple of years revisited. Particularly to just like, as I said, this foothills growers.